All right. So today we're going to talk about a couple of things. A new book that we got going with Doug, Tanya, and I, and we'll show you where you can download it for free till it's published. And then I'm going to talk to you about, I'm going to make it very practical for you. I'm going to show you a health assessment uh, survey kind of thing you can access on the web, and I'll show you where to get it. And I think that'll center it to why this is important for you all. And then I've got a short film to show you. I'll turn it over to Tanya, and she's got some slides, and then Doug is going to do whatever Doug wants to do. Okay, so just for a little brief introduction, we're three veterans that are doing a book to raise money for veterans and workshop for veterans. Uh, we are doing that by selling $75 tickets to a Zoom session on December 4th. And we don't want any of you to buy any tickets, okay? Just get that out of your brain. I'm not here to sell you anything, but I would like it if you refer some other people. Coaches, I think, would like this, executives would like this, HR people. And it's a combination of our military background, yes, but Doug and I hope Monty's VuJaDé material and my material with coaching. And Tanya does a lot of consulting around San Antonio. So you'll be hearing about that today. And I want to wrap up at the end of the session
I'm
with
gonna
the
leave right
Quantum
now.
Storytelling Conference, how you can get involved in it.
I invited.
And if you would mute your microphones while I'm recording, I would appreciate it. All right. Okay. And then from there, what we'll do is, since some of you will be going, I'll be going, Grace Ann will be going. I hope Tom's going to go because he lives there. Olivia's going to go because she lives there. Lucero and Vanessa will be there. So you can co-author papers. And if you're not going to physically attend, we'll also have some lunch, dinner, Zoom sessions where you can just talk to people at the conference. The conference will not be able to Zoom during the conference because we're in a big room, 4 sessions happening at once, and a lot of community people walking around. So that won't be possible. All right. If there's no questions, I'm going to dive into what I think is a practical activity. Is that okay? We're all good? Doug, Tanya, you ready? All right. Anytime I'm going to pop out every once in a while and just talk to you without slides. And if you have a question, that's a good time. If you got a burning question, just do as you always do. Just say, David, stop. I got a question, and we'll take it from there. All right. So what you're looking at now is the GrowthOD website after I've overhauled it. So if it looks a lot different, then you'll see it then. Uh, Grace Ann's going to join us shortly. All right, so I created a kind of a diagnostic just to get you familiar with the terrain here. And I called it the quantum dialogical health, right? And that assessment, you all the information there, like name and email, is all optional. But if you do want to have um, the detailed results, then you put in, let's see, I have to spell it right. Okay, so you got that. Everything is optional. If you want to select an industry, 501c3, that's what we are. So I want to ask you in your chat if you just put the number answered, It's a scale of 1 to 5, right? And if you could answer the question about your voice, do the same 2 or 3 people speak 80% of the time in meetings you go to, at work or at home or school? If that's true, give it a 1, maybe a 2. If it's roughly half the time, a 3. If it's you have really good meetings, everybody participates here, like in GrowthOD, then give it a 4 or 5. So I'm going to give mine a 5. You give it whatever you want. The second question, and put a number in the chat if you would, a number between 1 and 5. About the decision influence. 1 is decisions are predetermined. Input is performative. In other words, I make my input. I don't necessarily believe it, but I'm required to do it. If it's 3 or so, input sometimes influences the outcomes. I know when I worked at the university, my influence never influenced outcomes of decisions being made in the college or the university. So, and 5, diverse perspectives genuinely shape the decision. So I'm going to give that a 2 in my personal experience. And then idea attribution. Ideas only gain traction when endorsed by senior leaders, executives, chancellors, school principals, whatever you're into. If it's a 3 or so, it's good ideas sometimes succeed regardless of source. And if it's a 4 or 5, ideas evaluated on merit, regardless of who proposes them. That never happens in the university. In corporations, I've seen it. I've seen it at the Coalition of Immokalee Workers, where everybody's a leader, very, very ensemble approach. So I'm thinking of them, and I'll give it a 5. So on the next section, I'll come back to. But I want to know, does that give you a flavor for where we're going today with the Q&A? Yeah. And that's available. You can find it at the growthod.org website or quantumstorytelling.org. So let me take a few questions now, see if Doug or Tanya has anything to input. And Doug, this isn't the quality thing, Monty, of a VuJaDé assessment, or Olivia, the one that you did is so brilliant. It's just give you an idea where we're going.
It's good. It's a good discussion point.
Okay,
It's a good
anything?
place to start.
Okay, good discussion point. Hi, Grace Ann. Welcome. So I just mentioned ensemble leadership, how much I enjoy that. And a little bit about CIW, Coalition of Immokalee Workers. They freed themselves as slaves in the tomato fields of Florida and then up and down the coast of the United States. And okay, should I go on with another set of questions, or do you want me to show you the film, or do you want to talk? What do you want to do?
Can we see the film?
You want to see the film? Yeah, you can see the film, okay? Let's see. Okay. Okay, the film is titled Superposition. It's a short video and it's got little graphics in it in my voice, so hope that's okay. What a superposition is a quantum term for how one story and another story happen at the same time. So you know my work in the Tamara play, right? Tomorrowland in Disney. But here we're going to give it a little more depth and show you how it affects corporations, team building, etc. So let me just make sure that I set everything up correctly so you would actually be able to hear the video. That would help. Okay. right, so that should work. All right, I went to the wrong website, so I'll try it again. Okay. All right. Joy, I'm having as much trouble as you did with Zoom with the website today. I guess I'm nervous. Okay, there it is. And it's all set up. Okay, so that should work. All right, without further ado. Welcome. Today we're going to talk about the melody that keeps people afloat, quantum storytelling. And I want to tell you it's by myself, David VuJaDé, Tanya Akins Kane, and Doug Breckenridge. So today we're going to talk about something really exciting. It's Dostoevsky's Double in Office Politics. It's a case study I'm applying to executives and teams. Ever wish you could decode the hidden messages that fly around the office? Well, today we're going to do just that. And our guide, believe it or not, is a 19th century Russian novelist that feels surprisingly modern to me. I want you to imagine something for a second. What if a single conversation you have every team meeting, every one-on-one had two soundtracks playing at the same time? You've got the one you can hear, right? The polite, professional, everything's great version. But then there's the other one, the hidden just beneath the surface. That's where the real story lives. The one that's full of doubt, frustration, and maybe even a little bit of ridicule. So this thing has a name. It's called double-voiced discourse. It's a term from a brilliant literary theorist, Mikhail Bakhtin, and it's all about how one single statement can carry two totally different, often clashing meanings. And to really see how this works, you're going to dive into a classic novella that lays it all out. Okay, let's head into Fyodor Dostoevsky's wild little book called The Double. We're about to meet a man whose inner turmoil literally walks into his life. Our main guy is a timid government clerk, Mr. Golly-Odkin. His life gets turned completely upside down when he runs into his exact physical doppelganger. I mean, a guy who looks just like him, sounds just like him, and even has the same name. Now, you'd think first reaction would be panic, right? But it's not. Golly-Odkin doesn't see a threat. He sees a victim. He looks at this guy and thinks, oh, this poor schmuck, pitiful person needs my help. He sees him as, I'm quoting here, an artless, pitiful, insignificant person, and he decides right then and there to become his protector. But this act of kindness is the start of a seriously rapid downfall. We go from brotherhood to, well, burlesque. After just one night of food, drinks, and swapping stories, we start to hear Golodetkin, two voices loud and clear. At the height of his goodwill, Golodetkin says, this is his new pal. You and I will take to each other like fish to the water. We shall be like brothers. This is his first voice, the one Bakhtin would call congenial and tenderly reassuring. It's all warmth and generosity. He's so all in, and his brotherhood idea that he even brushes off their identical appearance. He tells his double not to worry about it, saying it's just nature and Mother Nature is liberal with her gifts. He's completely sold on his new story, but then
Just like that, he switches, he flips. That first friendly voice, the brother gets totally hijacked by the nasty second voice, the judge. We shall be like brothers turns into a little internal whisper of you're a rascal, you know, and that whole it's nature thing, it's completely curdled into a harsh judgment, a regular burlesque. And this leads to his final crushing verdict. As he's looking over his sleeping guests, Golodetkin thinks to himself, an unpleasant picture, a burlesque, a regularly burlesque. Just like that, the supportive voice is totally gone, replaced by pure mockery. So, okay, how in the world does this story about a guy in the 19th century Russia connect to your office today? Well, you're about to see how this literary idea is an incredibly powerful tool for understanding our own professional lives. It sounds like a huge leap, right? A tormented clerk, mental breakdown, a Monday morning team meeting, but the dynamic is pretty much the same. In organization theory, folks like David Boji and Tanya Akins-Kane and Doug Breckenridge call this superposition. It's this idea that two completely contradictory stories can be true at the same time. There's the official story of the corporation everyone says out loud, and then there's the shadow story that everyone is thinking. And you can see it right here in Golodetkin's world. The official story is we are brothers, but the shadow story nibbling beneath it, he's a ridiculous burden. Now think about the office. The official story might be we're a collaborative team and we're excited about this change, while the shadow story is this new initiative is totally a joke and management has no idea what the hell they're doing. Both are real. Both exist at the same time until something happens that forces one of them out into the open, which brings us to the important part, reading that shadow story. It's not enough just to know it's there. This real skill is learning how to spot it, how to hear it. Because look, recognizing this double voice discourse, DVD, isn't just some fun literary exercise. It's the crucial skill for leaders, for colleagues, really for anyone who is trying to figure out what's really going on in any company's social situation. So, how do you do it? Here are 3 quick steps. First, just start by acknowledging that 2 stories, the official one and the shadow one, are probably both in play. Second, listen to the irony. Pay close attention when someone's tone just doesn't match their words. And third, try to avoid what Bakhtin called monologism, which is basically just a fancy word for putting people in a box of one story. Don't finalize them into one single role in a story. Give them space to have multiple complex voices. And this is super important. The goal here is not to play gotcha and expose hypocrisy. It's about getting deeper, more honest picture of what's happening. It's about understanding the full, messy, complex reality of a situation. So that leaves us with one last question for you to take with you in your own meetings, your own projects, your everyday conversations. What's the unspoken story in your world? For more, go to quantumstorytelling.org. You can download a free copy of our book, The Melody That Keeps People Afloat, Quantum Storytelling for Organizational Transformation, How Hidden Stories Shape 90% of Reality by David Boji, Tanya Atkins Kane, with Doug Breckenbridge of VuJaDé.ai, VuJaDé.ai, quantumstorytelling.org. You can find out all about it. We got a session coming up on December the 4th. Thank you.
Okay. So let's see if I can get my stuff back. Okay. Stop sharing, David. Okay, there we go. So I'd be interested in a round of discussion. Thank you for the hearts. Appreciate it. And then after that, we'll turn to Tanya, and you'll have to load your own PowerPoints when you're ready. Okay, so what questions, what reactions? Did I hit the bullseye, or what? Did I miss the whole friggin' target? What happened here? Doug or Carl, I saw you waving. I don't know if that meant like
You definitely hit the bullseye. It's so true in corporate life. I mean, what you can say to certain executive, and then okay, what you're really thinking. I mean, sometimes you're rewarded sometimes for this polite talk, especially the company I work for. They used to call it State Farm Nice. But the reality is something you just need that genuineness saying, hey, this is going to work, but this is where I have reservations where I don't think would work. And to get that rapport with readers leaders that are open to that kind of, hey, here's some concerns and reservations. That's when true transformation happens. So this is outstanding. I really, it's so relevant in corporate culture. So thank you, David.
Thank you. And who would like to talk next? Oh, Edward. I saw you bouncing around in your chair. You got something to say?
So I just realized I missed the beginning of this call. I was putting together the final parts of the presentation for the conference this week, and I had just got done playing with, and I apologize for everyone that doesn't have full context. I'm sharing some information that I guess Dr. Boji and Dr. Rosile are really only privy to because they're helping with my dissertation and my development of a theory of self around being, doing, and thinking, and utilizing the framework, a theoretical framework of this hierarchy of value by Robert S. Hartman. And I am equating our thinking, not only our doing, being, and thinking, of how we show up in the workplace. This speaks very much to the thinking aspect of our being and the ability to feel safe, seen, and heard. And the heard part is having a voice and understanding the stories we tell ourselves and the stories that we get that are not only explicit but implicit, and the untold stories that are I think that I caught the end of that is that listen for the untold story, and not in an effort, and I am guilty of this, to say I gotcha and point out the hypocrisy, because I think that although that feels really good deep down inside in the gut to say, hey, don't treat people like that, or how could you fire 1,000 people? They're human, and part of me wants to say, hey, don't do that. But the reality is that it's complex. They're dealing with a lot of complexity. And my hope is that we can create a space for organizations to help people feel like they can have a voice, help them feel seen for the contributions that they make, and then have existential safety, this concept of not just psychological safety, but existential safety in being a human being in the workplace. That's it.
Well, thank you, Edward. Now we'll give equal time to VuJaDé with Doug and Monty. Go ahead. And then we'll get to Olivia's question.
Well, I'll let my partner Monty go. Let him add in some perspective analysis. I always love to hear his perspective.
Doug, go forward, please.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, he's going to be passed back. Okay. Well, there's, yeah, David, it does hit the mark. I was just, as you were going through it, thinking about, for those of you that are interested in VuJaDé, how this tool supports it. And so as David laid out this one perspective, which is one step of 7 steps in this process of melody, those 7 steps are the how. But in that, it's nice to have tools to help that. And so VuJaDé supports it both on this internal, inward perspective of understanding where's the polyphony of the voices, as well as externally. And what we've seen with it, externally is the easier one to explain, because once again, it doesn't try to stereotype you, to put you into a category. And every score we've ever had is a unique score. And so that right there is a catalyst to allow people to start that process of realizing there are multiple voices, and it's not little clicks that you have, but everyone has an individual perspective, and that's a nice process to get going in this trip down polyphony. The other thing we've seen with a number of our partners is people, once they recognize other people, they say, well, I have multiple voices as well, and my voice and the authenticity and the confidence I gain from that's very important to make sure I share. And so you can start to also say, well, if there's external voices that are individuals, I have internal voices that are competing with one another. And getting that movement from competing to complementing one another, accepting that change, is once again a process that VuJaDé helps support, well, among the many other tools that Tanya and David brought into this book. So just giving that little perspective from VuJaDé for everyone.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Go to Olivia. Hear another voice. Olivia's voice. Go ahead.
Thank you, David. Something Carl said and really around the whole conversation reminded me that one of the things I noticed consulting for a lot of different companies was that they were more open if they were driven by long-term profits versus short-term profits. But if they were just trying to make the quarterly numbers, that's when things got a lot worse. And I think that's just a big issue. I don't have a solution, but I did notice that pattern.
Thank you. We'll go to Tom. And Tom, we're anxious to hear your practical wisdom on all this. So what'd you think of the video?
Thanks, David. I agree with what Carl was saying and Olivia as well, that in my experience, almost all companies I've been involved with have had this one voice saying everything is great, fear of saying anything negative about the company, and yet in the hallways it was always present. And some of this had gone on, the stories went back in some cases for companies that had been in business for 50, 70 years. The story went back probably 30, 40 years, and it still was there, and management still didn't really address it. And I don't know if it was because people tried to address it at the management team that was back then, or in some cases it was, yeah, we'll have a new CEO in another 2 years, so we'll just put up with this crap for a while. And then he'll be gone too, she'll be gone next. So it is it's something that's really important. So thank you, David. That's an excellent presentation.
Oh, thank you very much. With your permission, I want to move now to Tanya. And she's going to talk about her consulting with quantum storytelling and something about her new book. I know we did some editing on it yesterday. And so when you're ready, Tanya, you should have ability to load your slides and present.
All righty.
Ready. Be sure to press all of the buttons on the second approval so we can see you. So, very good.
All righty. So for me, I really loved the movie that David shared with us today, because it really does capture a day in my life as a consultant. There's always a frontline story, and then there's several backstories. I love what Edward also shared about people having a voice. One of the things that I've recognized in my experience has been that while a lot of people will have a voice, some people may not. And the people with the loudest voice don't always have that empathetic ear to hear somebody else's voice, or to even consider the backstory, the other side stories that they may not know about. I know for me, I work in all kinds of consulting capacities as an OCM consultant for different agencies, from mostly government to hospitals and healthcare. And something that I've learned is that everybody's voice should be heard, but it's not often heard. So as a consultant, for me, my whole goal is to make sure that everybody's voice is heard in one way or another, even if they're not willing to make their voices known within their organizations to their leaders. So what I do is I do a quantum storytelling OCM framework that I've used based on my experiences, based on quantum storytelling from the start. I used this methodology a little bit in my military services before I retired, and I do wish that I had this methodology as solid as it is today, because I could see some ways we could have improved a lot of things, a lot of programs on the HR side of the house within the Air Force for me. So I wanted to talk about the four phases of transformation for me. I don't think I mentioned, I mostly deal with digital transformations, and that is bringing new systems into organizations. Because of the size of the organizations that I service and I have the blessing of working for, they usually already have an HR system that's either, I'll give the example of my current assignment and my previous assignment. I'm currently working for the largest energy company within Southwest Texas. And prior to this assignment, which I just started maybe 3 weeks ago, I worked for the Health and Human Services Department of Indian Health Services. Both of these organizations do have an EHR, electronic health record system, and an ERP, employee relationship system. However, those systems are so convoluted and so not innovative or intuitive that there are several workarounds. Each person does workarounds. And I loved the movie that David shared, because that's one of the problems that I find the most is people doing things in a silo. I find a lot of siloing. And I think that with quantum systems, we could help shift those silos and break those silos apart if it's done tactfully. I'm a big assessments person. So I want to assess where organizations are, what they're doing, how they're doing it, and give each employee the opportunity to tell me, hey, these are my pain points. These are my workarounds. This is what I do in the system. This is what I don't do in the system. Because I'm finding in my career that that's where I can bring their voices in. I may have Alice who doesn't like technology. So I have to make the technology meet Alice's needs and keep Alice um comfortable enough. Not it, I gotta give her some disruption, but give her as least amount of disruption in her processes as possible in my design elements when I'm talking to the systems architects and the developers. And then implementing that is really a people-centric approach for me because I think that one of the best and most effective things that I do is bring in that change champion network. That's a core group of people who come in and help with the implementation. We're teaching them to own this implementation, give their voice to it, lend a hand, saying, hey, this will work for us and this won't work for us out of the different departments. And then during that sustainment hypercare section, then I'm able to help them not only understand what's working within the new system for them, but what's not working and how we can get it to work better for them. So I like the superposition and the wave particle duality of things because, as you know, especially in this fast-paced world, organizations exist in multiple story states simultaneously. So teams often have conflicts and different things, yet they are equally valid, and we have to handle them even though we handle them in a different way. So as we're the stories are flowing and waves of possibilities are crystallizing, we're able to bring a calm to the storm, so to speak. But that calm doesn't come easily. It may take months or even years for that calm to be here. Wanted to ask, I do want to ask a question to the group. Have you all seen where there is chaos and calm at the same time during your experiences working within organizations? And if so, how did that impact your behaviors as a consultant or a team member?
Do you want to stop sharing for a minute and then take the question?
Sure. Oh, sharing. Joy?
I didn't turn off my mic. Carl has his hand up and then we'll go to Joy. Carl, go ahead.
Thank you, David. Tanya, love your presentation. It's so valued. Every voice be heard. As far as calm and kind of chaos, for me, sometimes I was an internal consultant at State Farm Insurance for a number of years, and I would go into these situations, and when people were really distressed and they didn't know what's going on, and they'd look to me like, okay, come on up with the answer. And I said, you know what? If it was easy, it'd be done. We would, and that's why they need us here. And so it would take the pressure off me to say, hey, I have to come on there on the spot, come up with an answer, which I couldn't possibly have. But just saying that would free everybody today. It's okay to not know, but we're going to know. And then the next day, somebody would come up with a solution of what to do next. And really, it's just having gone through enough times to really believe that we were going to come up with a solution. So it's like I have the confidence, like we're going to get through it, even though I had no idea how yet, but be almost okay with the chaos and the uncertainty, knowing that we would get certain again. And it wouldn't have happened if I just didn't have a lot of times of that happening. Because at first I thought there's no way we'll ever figure this stuff out. But there's smart people in the room. I don't have to be the smartest person in the room. The smartest person in the room is the one who's talking at the time and listening to them. So calm and chaos, I love that. Olivia talks about chaos, like a thing in her book too, in business intelligence. But how can you have chaos and order at the same time? Calm and order. So I love that concept, and it's really resonated with me.
Okay, Joy, you got the microphone. Go ahead.
Great, great. Thank you, Tanya. It sounds like we've had some similar experience, as I've had 30 some years in the corporate environment implementing change. And I have been as a certified project manager and working in the agile world of implementing change. It is often chaos to the people who are resistant to change. And there must be some human factor that makes a lot of us resistant to change. But when you especially take a tool away from someone that they thought was working for them, or you're planning to replace the tool that they use with something new, it is very often very upsetting for people. And they can see the writing on the wall, very likely, is laying off people or technology taking the place of what people do. And in a perfect, I have worked for some very well organized big companies. So in a well organized implementation, you stress the cross training, that if your job is eliminated, as long as you're a team player, we'll find a place for you. And you can be retrained into something similar, or you can apply for a lateral move, or you may improve yourself and get a promotion in some way, or move to a new department and just expand on your creativity. You know, that gone are the days where people want to do the same thing for 30 years every day, day in and day out. You know, factory jobs or certain positions where people keep them for years. It is very important to make people know that after the chaos does come the calm. And for some people, like I said, my job was to be a change maker. And many times it did eliminate people. And the first people that eliminated were the people who crossed their arms and would not be a team player. You know, they would not be willing to be retrained, and who would not be willing to embrace the change and look forward to working with the new technology. So I understand exactly where you're coming from. You know, the teams are often storming, you know, right after they're forming, they're storming, and then they become norming if they have good project management leadership, and then they become performing. So there are these steps of having a well-organized team, and I think you guys are really onto something. I love this. I absolutely love everything I've heard so far today. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And we're going to go to Tom. Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you. That reminded me, Joy, of the story that when I first started at Kmart, a guy showed up by my office one morning and he said, introduced himself and said, "I'm here just to tell you that I don't like you." And I said, "What do you mean? You don't even know me. You haven't even met me." And he said, "You're here to eliminate my job. And you're going to," because we were doing huge amount of newspaper advertising. He said, you're just going to start targeting customers and get rid of all the newspapers." And I go, "Well, why would I do that?" And I said, "Because it costs twice as much to do what I'm doing. So if I could help you get more newspaper subscribers, would that be a benefit to you?" And he said, well, why would you do that? And I said, because it costs the company a lot less money to do that. The problem is everybody doesn't read the newspaper anymore. So I said, I'll tell you what, I'll put an ad for newspaper subscribers on the back of every time we run an ad and see how many people we can sign up. He transitioned from telling me he didn't like me to where he became one of my most trusted allies. So it kind of works both ways. But I was thinking that there's what I'll call a silent story. And going back to what I said before, that a silent story is sort of running through the organization, but no one really talks about it openly. It's the hallway story or whatever that people are unhappy about. They don't like this, or what you were saying, Joy. There's something new coming. I know this new person came in. My job's immediately at risk, and the fear that's attached to that silent story is pretty powerful thing. Powerful.
At this point, Tanya, do you want to show some more slides and respond to some of this first, or
I do, just one
whatever
more,
you want to
just
do?
one more, just promise.
Could
I really do. Oh, yes, go ahead.
I can't, I'm not sure how to use the hand raise thing in this different computer, but in terms of chaos, what I've seen is that, and for our role as advisors or facilitators and consultants, my experience has been that there are all these different stories and all this different, and what happens is when you have all these apparent contradictions, people interpret that as chaos because they
Yeah.
can't resolve the paradox of two opposites coexisting. But sometimes it's helpful from our perspective to be able to offer a framework where you can see where things fit. And so in one example I had was people were talking about, being involved in certain decisions and how confusing and complex. So if you look at categorizing the kind of decisions and which ones need greater participation and which ones are more focused, and identify the categories, and then everything started to make sense. Everybody's like, oh yeah. So I think that's a big part of our job, is conceptualizing those kind ways in which it can make sense and be a little less chaotic until people, I mean, ideally they'll eventually get to the point where they understand that contradictory things can coexist. But providing frameworks anyway.
Hi,
And I
Grace
think that's
Ann.
what you're
Thank
doing
you
now,
very
Tanya.
much.
Thank you.
Tom, is your hand still up, or did you have a question? Okay. Tanya, it's all yours. Do what you want to do, and then we're going to turn it over to Doug.
All righty. And I do appreciate your comment, Grace Ann, because I'm a framework person. So frameworks and methodology have been my saving grace in helping people. I wanted to talk a little bit about the polyphono in action, to bring that chaos and calm together and just give it a harmonious voice, so to speak, even though, as Edward so eloquently stated, we don't have all the answers. We don't have everything together, but the things that we do have together, we can make better by amplifying our differences. So often I see leaders saying, hey, we don't want any conflict. We only want to talk about the good stuff. We don't want to rock any boats. We don't want to bring up any of our differences. But there cannot be resolution without conflict. So having the courage to stand up and say, hey, you've got to address this, leaders. Hey, mid-levels, people, leaders, you have to voice these concerns for your people. Because if we don't hear your voice and the voice of your people, we can't help you adequately, and we can't help you in its full, in our full capacity. And you have to have a plan of, for lack of a better term, a framework as to how you're going to not only amplify the differences, but create those containers. Create, how do we put some guardrails behind how we handle these differences, how we handle these different design forms, um, and create a safe place, a safe space for those who have these disagreements. And it goes back to what Grace Ann says: we have to characterize, categorize, map out those complexities. Hey, these are some of our pain points right now. We've got to work together to come up with resolution as to how we're going to make these pain points a blessing to us and not a hindrance. And we can't oftentimes make every pain solve every problem right then and there. We may have 20 problems, and we only may have solutions for 10 of those 20. And we may have to put those other 10 on the backlog and come back to them. But we've got to start moving forward and mapping that complexity, and finding, hey, we don't have a solution to these problems today, but we can take elements from all of the problems we do have solutions to, and put some guardrails around how we're going to solve the 20 as a whole. So with that, I'd love to hear from the team just a little bit about how you have worked in your careers to solve differences and to help people come up with resolutions in the face of their differences.
Okay, the floor is open. Go ahead, Grace Ann.
So David and I have used something called the mirror, where you have competing groups. We might have done it with your class. I don't remember, Tanya. Did we? Okay. So it's how do we see ourselves? How do we see them? How do we think they see us? And the kind of secret to making this work is that you create those lists, but there's no interaction as you announce those lists to the large group. You just get the information out there, you process it back in your home group. So you say, oh, they think we're, we did this with doctors and nurses, and the nurses say, doctors, or the doctors say, they're going to say we golf on Wednesdays or something like that. And so we did this with secretaries and the professional staff at the physical science lab. And what to get to the end, new information came out. The secretaries thought that the professional staff would say that they were lazy and needed to work harder and stuff like that. And instead, the secretaries said, if you give us more information, we can be more helpful to you. And everybody was like, wow, totally opposite what we expected. So having in a structured way before they can get into argument, bringing out the information in a safe environment and process it, then they can come together and see where they're the same, where they have differences, and what they want to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Grace Ann. Joy, you're on.
Very well said, Grace Ann. In fact, it might have knocked me off of what I was going to say, but I agree with I agree with all of what you said. I think the original question was, what have we done? And I have done everything from interpersonal conflicts where you literally get the two people in a huddle room, not a big conference room, but in a smaller room, and ask them to describe the situation and not allow the other person to interrupt. Describe the situation. And then ask the other person to describe the situation. And many times it's not even the same situation. They're totally upset about two different things, and together they can come up with compromise. Now, I've seen that work. It sounds, when I even say that right now, it sounds almost impossible, but I've seen that work many times with people not understanding the other person's perspective. And I had to say, wait, you'll get your turn. You'll get your turn, and let each person describe why that was upsetting to them. And then on the larger scale, where you have competing priorities for departments and even divisions within a huge company, and competing priorities, and the stakeholders have competing ideas of what they need for their piece of the project. But I always take them back to what is the overall goal and objective of this piece of the project. I think Tanya said we aren't solving all 20 things at once. We have goals and we have objectives that we have to meet. And if you are off track of what we're trying to do right now, then you will have to go into the backlog, or your concern will have to be tabled to phase two. And that, there's a little bit of job security in a project manager setting things for phase two, because I have been the type of contractor that has been W-2, and at the same company I've been 1099. You know, I've just come in to do a project. But many times, to resolve conflict and that chaos, you have to shelve things into the phase two. And that is how I've handled it on a larger scale. So thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Joy. Brilliant as always. Now we're going to hear from Doug. Doug, I'm an outcome person in VuJaDé.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to do my best. I'm gonna try to do my best here. I already know that I have VuJaDé up in front of me here, David. So I know I can even tell you your score if you'd like to know. But first off, just it's so wonderful to have so many great contributors, because I have so many voices in my head speaking to me. So I'm going to try to intertwine them in some way. I think there's a very fine line between chaos and polyphony. And the reason I say that is, when you think about the Perview methodology, we're reframing the way we approach things. We're reframing the stories we tell ourselves. We're reframing the stories our organization tell ourselves. So one of the voices in my head is saying, you know, when we talk about companies that are capable of dealing with chaos, or people that are just capable of dealing with chaos, I go back to one voice of Gerhard Hofstadter telling me, you know, there's societies that deal with ambiguity well and some that don't deal with it well. So we are programmed in some ways on how we approach chaos. And I think rather than, there are times that we have to compromise, but if we step back and we say, wait, we welcome all those voices. If chaos is the polyphony, let's reframe the way we approach that and welcome those different voices to come in and be heard. You know, one of the nice things of, and I'm sure David and Tanya can share this, one of the nice things about being in the military is what you're trained, or you have some natural instincts around when everything gets chaotic. You almost step back and calm down, and your senses are more out to accept what's going on. Because if you get chaotic during a difficult situation, that means you or somebody else dies. So you learn to actually become one of the calmest people in the room when chaos hits. And, you know, for me, it's been very fortunate. I took that 4 different startups that I've had, and I've recognized on a personal level that when things get chaotic, that's the time when everyone else is confused. You can jump way far ahead. Just maintain calm, get the voices of everyone and yourself, and take steps forward. Monty and I literally started our company on the very first day of COVID. So when chaos was there, that was the opportunity to do those things. So I think part of this is reframing not only the way we approach chaos individually with our team members as leaders in our organization, when everyone's saying, I think Carl's inputs and Joy's inputs and Grace inputs is how do we give frameworks to help people just not only realize that we can move forward, but this is actually a good thing. The chaos is an opportunity, not necessarily a problem. So that was just my little inputs on that.
Good input it is. Thanks for being a co-author in the book. Appreciate it, or working with us. Tanya, did you have a couple more slides, or do you want to switch gears to the conference, or what do you want to do?
Let's switch gears.
All right.
I do see Olivia's hand up there, Tanya. Just
oh, I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, no, I think
Olivia, go ahead, please.
That's okay. I just want to make a real quick comment that when I was first in the corporate world and had a pretty chaotic early life, I wanted everything to be really predictable. And then after it got predictable and I started building up my confidence, I got bored and I really wanted more chaos in a way, or I wanted more challenge. I was working for Advana Bank. I don't know if you remember them, but they kind of pioneered the bounce transfer and then they got bought up by somebody, but I was promoted and I knew I was just going to be stuck in this corner office for years. And I went, I can't do this. And so I went off and became a consultant because I just liked change and I realized chaos was kind of fun because I learned I could handle it. So I don't know if anybody else had that experience, but just thought I'd share.
Wonderful. Wonderful. All right. Thanks for the discussion today. I'm going to switch gears and talk a little bit about the conference coming up. It's in its 15th year. It's going to be held in Los Angeles. A group of true storytelling grads that were in training that Grace Ann and I did are organizing it. It's open to the quantum storytelling, the true storytelling, the GrowthOD, and there'll be a lot of community art kind of things and probably some plays, some Our Town adaptations, I think. So they'll give you a little bit of understanding. So let's take a look at it. Let's see, there we go. All things are good. All right. All right, so here we are. This is at quantumstorytelling.org. It's the website. It gives the dates of the conference to start with, 15th annual. Storytelling to build community through leadership is the theme. We've been doing this 15 years, this conference, and 60% of the people are not on the theme and 40% pay attention to the theme. So just if you want to know, this is, you've got an example of my submission here. If you click that link, you can see how to compose a 350 word abstract title and send it in. There's a couple of videos there to get you going. Oh, I know what I'm doing. I'm in the wrong window. Let me back out and find the correct window here. Hold on. Okay, let's try that again. It's more fun when we can play. Okay. All right. So, then you click on my submission and you see there's an abstract, about 350 words. I do a dialogue. It's part of the abstract between Karen Barad, quantum physicist who talks about time-space mattering, Slavoj Zizek, who has both agreements and disagreements with Karen Barad for leaving out spirituality, particularly Hegel. Deepak Chopra, who tends to get a lot of criticism for being quantum woo-woo from the real scientists. I also put an AI agent in there. Fits Tanya's theme of artificial intelligence coming on board and other kinds of technologies. And then I'm in the thing, and then I gave some references. So that's That's about 350 pages, and that gets sent to Grace Ann, and she receives those, and that's how it works. So if you click on here, you can see the superposition video I showed you at the beginning. You can find out about the book, the 7 principles of quantum storytelling melody. We call it the melody of chaos, right? We were talking about chaos, so it has a melody. If we can listen to the music of it and not be freaked out. So observer effect superposition is what we focused on today. Tanya did wave particle duality. She talked about space-time mattering, polyphony, and the final chapter is about unfinalizability. You know, we think the story's over, but it's never over. I retire, you think my story at the university is over? No, it's not over, you know, all right? All kinds of examples. So this is the book cover, the melody that keeps people afloat. And you can download the PDF and see it online. I'll show you that that works slowly because it's a big book, so you'll have to wait. It's about 240 pages right now. And after Doug and Tanya edit it more, it'll probably be 100. So you have the, again, the covers, that chapters, you can click on various chapters and see what it is. If you do the PDF, the Word doc will download the whole document. That document changes all the time. This is that health dialogue health assessment I showed you at the beginning of the session, so you can continue that. You can register for the Zoom event we're going to have as a pre-conference, $75, right? And that'll happen on December the 4th. So all the information is there. So that's about it for that website. I'm going to stop sharing. It would help me if you actually went and filled out the diagnostic health assessment, because I need to redo some questions, put better instructions in. I did this in one day. I'm not just boasting, but you know, I got the thing up and running in a day, you know, so I'm going for the all-time record in survey construction. So anyway, it takes about 3-4 minutes to fill out, and you get a detailed assessment. You also get one of those radar pictures, and it looks at all the facets that we think are important. But it will change, and Doug is going to give me a lot of advice on how to change it, Doug. I expect that from you, all right? And Olivia. One other thing I want to focus on here, so I don't forget. Let's see, it's right here. Let me give an image so I can actually find it. Okay. All right. So back to the GrowthOD website. If you look down here, this another event is the special GLOW program that's going to happen on November the 6th, 10 a.m. Pacific time to about 11 o'clock a.m. Be different time zones. I've listed the time zones, and you can click there to find out about GLOW. I really love the new logo, GLOW. I love the way it bounces around, at least the way I programmed it to bounce. If you don't mind bouncing GLOW. So you can find out all about things on that website. And this is kind of the new format for the websites I'm doing. I'll be doing it with Olivia and Tom. All right. And that one, I believe, is a freebie. So Olivia, do you want to say anything about it before we move ahead? I know you've got to say
Yes,
something.
out of the room at the moment.
Let me see. View gallery.
She'll be back in a minute, David.
Oh, okay. You're out of the room. Okay. So we got 2 programs, and it's an example of GrowthOD, actually doing joint ventures with the participants in GrowthOD. And I hope when Eddie gets his dissertation done, there'll be another book coming out with Eddie featured in the whole thing. But he's not going to do a book until he gets his dissertation done, because that's a rule, But I really appreciate you, Eddie, for doing the conference presentation on formal axiology. So we have the joint venture with Olivia, Tom, and myself, and another joint venture with Doug, Tanya, and myself. All right. So Olivia, do you want to say anything about the event for November 6th, I think, if I got it right?
Yeah, we've already presented a bit about Glow, so it'll be more about just how gratitude and love in the culture can positively affect the bottom line. And we'll get into a bit of science and then hopefully have time for a little experience. And yeah, just we'll look at it logically and also somatically. So hope you
And
join
if I
us.
recall, it's planned for about 45 minutes with you and I and Tom, and kind of an introductory aspect. Now, the one with Doug and Tanya and I, that's for coaches, consultants, executives, HR departments, etc. That one is $75. Now, we're raising money to, Grace Ann and I have a nonprofit called Perview Inc., Perview Inc., 501c3. And all the money that we get, Grace Ann and I, that's going to go toward programs for veterans and their families. I did some analysis of the situation of stress, PTSD, and people who have been to deployment and come back. It spreads into the family. That's that heavy stress. And Grace Ann and I have very expensive programs that we need funded to work with horses. And I do things with sand trays and then the regular Perview coaching thing. Doug does his thing. Tanya does her thing. And then we want to help veterans and their families. And we had actually a evidence-based approach that Grace Ann and I worked through with the psychology department at New Mexico State University. They were doing clinical trials, and then COVID hit and everything collapsed. But we did find out that the military won't fund these kind of complex programs that are with families because they'll only pay a consultant, get this, $25 per session, okay? Now that you're going to starve and go broke with that. And to do horses, that's considered a group event. Again, $25. I'm sorry, I got to feed the horse. I got a farrier. I got a masseuse. I got everything going on. The trainers, right, Grace Ann? So so that's what we're doing. We're going to sell a session to coaches and consultants and executives, not to veterans. Veterans will be in another session for free. So I hope I've expressed that clearly. Does anybody have a question or comment before we start to wrap up? Grace Ann, go ahead.
So when our session first of all, I want to say, Tanya, beautiful presentation. Well presented, well thought out. Thank you so much. And so from the start, David's first thing on double narration or whatever, Diane Keaton died just recently, and one of her most, I thought, iconic scenes was with the Woody Allen movie. If people remember, I think it was the first time on film where people had dialogue and the subtitles reflected their inner thoughts, which did not match the dialogue. If you remember those. Yeah. So what I was thinking was, we're always in that situation where our multiple voices or whatever are the subtitles underneath what we're saying. And I don't know if this helps other people, but it occurred to me that axiology and the values of what we're doing, this is what's important to me, is another set of subtitles. And that the axiogenics also is another set of subtitles. How is this organized? What's my structure? What, that sort of agenda, hidden agenda, that we have all layers of those in our own personalities. And that sort of helped me think of how this is all fitting together, that it's kind of layers of subtitles and we're just the tip of the iceberg in our interactions.
Thank you, Gracie Ann. Let's start checking out now. Those of you who have not spoken yet, let's start with you, and then we'll end with people who've been more active in the session. I know you're active thinking and being and doing, right? As Eddie's talking about. But in my I'll start. I'm grateful that you're here. I'm grateful we could introduce these two wonderful programs, one from GrowthOD with the Glow, and one through the Perview with VuJaDé and Tanya and myself and Doug. So thank you for seeing my film. I hope it's good and for you. And if you do the assessment, you can get to it at either growthod.org or quantumstorytelling.org. I get sent the values that you put in the questions, and that'll allow me to do some complex statistics with David Trifimo, once I get enough responses. And Doug will help me with, hey, David, you got to explain that question better, But anyway, I'm going to turn to Ken Long. Go ahead.
Well, I'm grateful for reminder of that there are things that change always, and then there's things that just don't change that hold the organization together. And sometimes we forget those deep roots that support us. And these calm methods of uncovering those roots is where progress comes from, and I believe it's possible. So I'm grateful to have been reminded of all that. Appreciated the presentations and the fellowship. Aho.
You can choose somebody who didn't speak yet, and then we'll get to the speakers, Ken.
Jim Rogers, my friend. I'm dreaming about you.
Okay. Well, I come from such a different background. It seems like most of my work experience was in construction, coming from a working class background. And, but, PTSD touched me. My first stepfather was Jewish, volunteered to fight in Germany. And back in the 50s, we really didn't understand PTSD like we do today, and how that can be transmitted to families, and that's certainly had a large impact on my life, witnessing violence in the home. And so I guess in my so-called career path, I ended up working by myself, and eliminated a lot of the challenges that many of you have experienced working in corporate life. And yet the way that this group addresses sort of the personal issues, I think, is integral to the development of organizations, and understanding that, and the internal processes that we go through and how we communicate become valuable in our own growth, and in the growth in our lives and community and organizations and so on. I'll stop there. But yeah, Paul.
Wow. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I just have to be an echo of everyone saying what an amazing polyphony this group is always exemplifying. How can we, it's it's chaotic from my point of view, but it's it's harmonious chaos. What Olivia was saying, uh, chaos is never boring, and a life that works out neatly and a life of comfort can become oppressive. I am reminded over the last 4 or 5 days, I've been in long conversations, one with a cousin, the other with a best friend, and they've been very much drawn into the entanglement, the knots, the stories not being told, everything that has come out today. And I'm sort of, what am I supposed to do with Bob and his mental decline, and Jack, another guy, and his physical decline? All I can say is I've been taking notes furiously, hoping to catch up with all of you. Thank you. And I will pass the baton, I think, to Monty.
Sure. So I enjoyed the session this morning, and I was reflecting on where I was last Monday at a very, very large, progressive, highly innovative, probably one of the most innovative dairies on the planet in Southwest Kansas. And at this time last week, having a CEO basically talking about perspectives and how different people come to whatever certain point in time based upon their perspectives. And in our particular conversation, cultural components became a major part of that conversation. And I think we as human beings, we're complex from the standpoint of our worldview, our cultural backgrounds, all of the different elements that we bring to the party, so to speak. And at one point in time in the conversation, I asked the CEO if they wanted to invest in VuJaDé. And he basically said, well, we limit our investments to those things that are sort of pertinent to our business. And I said, so your 300 employees are not pertinent to your business? And then I reminded him of his previous employer saying one day at the organization of just top dairy producers called the Dairy Club, that you can buy all of the fancy equipment in the planet, but if you don't have the right culture, none of that equipment matters. So anyway, my perspective.
Okay, we'll go to Jack, and then Jack, you can choose other people who have not spoken. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, David. And Monty, thank you for your piece. I missed the first 55 minutes. I had a mandated meeting I could not change. And I'm sorry I missed that. I wanted to hear about Tanya and the melody, all about the melody that keeps people afloat. I wish I could see that. Now, I will get the recording. Is that right? I will be able to get the okay, thank you, David. Because I want to catch up on all the parts I missed. I can see just by what we're doing now that I missed a big part of the content today. That I need to hear and know. This whole idea of harmonious chaos and being comfortable in chaos, I need to learn about that. So I'm looking forward to the recording. Sorry I missed the first hour, and I will pass it on to Sabine.
Thank you so much. As so often, on the one hand, I'm feeling a little bit like a fish out of the water. But on the other hand, there is something that resonated with me very strongly, and that was tone. David, when you mentioned tone, to assess not only what somebody is saying, but how he or she is saying it. And I am wondering too, is there perhaps a system to analyze that? For example, speed of speaking, is there hesitation? Is there not? And how loud, how soft? And does it sound sincere? How do you detect? It's like, when you're in a meeting and somebody is like, oh, this is a great idea, maybe too much enthusiasm can be a signal for, oh yeah, this is a bunch of baloney. I mean, like what are the signals? I mean, and I wonder, if it would be possible to have, like a system for that, to detect the different tones.
The answer is yes. And we'll do some checking out. Maybe we'll get to that on Tuesdays. All
Okay.
right.
I'm thinking, like in terms of like, going into like linguistics approaches.
Well, certainly the book, The Melody That Keeps People Afloat, is all through tone, is all through that book. So check it
Okay.
out. Check it out. Download it for free. So
Thank
it's
you.
published by hopefully Rutledge or Oxford or somebody. We'll see. Grace Ann, you want to check out next? And
Very nice to be with everybody. I enjoyed the discussions of chaos and meaning making. Thank you.
you want to choose the next person? Or you want me to do it? Okay, Joy, go ahead.
Thank you, David. Well, I was very inspired today by all of the speakers and all of the information that has been gathered for the melody that keeps people afloat. And of all the many things that I like to talk about, you probably know that I like to talk about teamwork and corporate culture. So for that, I truly enjoyed every bit of that. And related to teamwork, I have a team of about 3 and a couple of folks that come and go, and it's still a team, and it's a still an organization, even though my own team is for my own Joy Can Help coaching. But by the way, I wanted to mention I'm Joy Harris from Joy Can Help Coaching, and I am a Perview trained storytelling coach. So I am looking forward to participating with this group more and more. So thank you so much for today. And let's see who we did not hear from. Let's see, did we hear from Monty?
We did. So let's go to Edward. Go ahead, Edward.
Well, I've already said a lot. So what am I thinking? I am ingesting and digesting all the voices that I've heard today. I'm getting ready to have some lunch with my beautiful wife before I head out to Texas for a conference this week and present on behalf of Grace Ann and David. And in addition to presenting on their behalf, I'm just grateful for both of them, for the wisdom they've given me. Happy to see Grace Ann on her healing journey. I will miss you both. And at the same time, Paul triggered in me around my experience through my journey of cancer, and searching for something to do related to what's going on in his life. And it just reminds me of why I do what I do, even though I question my own capacity to be able to add any value working on a dissertation in the field of OD. And I realized that in some way, shape, or form, we all have something to share just by being present. And I'll stop there.
Thank you for that. And let's hear from Olivia and Tom, together or separate, whatever you want to do.
I think I went, so Tom.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for today. I'm always amazed by, let's call it the polyphony of wisdom of this group. And thank you very much, David and Tanya, for the excellent presentations. I learned so much, and I really admire how you put all this together in a way that's succinct and yet we can comprehend it. So I'm very grateful for that.
Well, thank you. And Tanya and Doug, one at a time.
I'm really grateful for this opportunity to share thoughts and ideas, to also receive different perspectives and learn and grow. Just really grateful for this time. Doug?
Thanks, Tanya. I'm humbled and based off what Edward was talking about, because I'm also inspired by the group. Humbled because like him, you don't think your contributions are that important. And so I'll give due credit to Tanya and David for the heavy lifting on this. They've just invited me in to give some comments, but I'm humbled to contribute and also inspired to do that. And I really appreciate the inputs. I mean, in truth, the work we all do should have so many names on it, because you all push us to reconsider, to envelop and bring together these thoughts. And so it just makes the tapestry a little bit richer, or in this case, the song a little bit richer in the melody. So thank you so much for all your contributions. I think that leaves you, David.
Thank you very much, and appreciate everybody making comments in the chat, and I hope you'll send me more feedback to Tanya as well, and to Doug. Share the feedback. And, we appreciate that. We'll be getting ready. Remember, you can work with any of the people that are attending the conference physically, and there's a bunch of them, and write a paper and co-author with somebody, and you'll get credit for that. And we'll have, that's at the annual conference, which starts on my birthday, December 17th. I don't know how Grace Ann's going to make that chocolate cake work out there in Los Angeles, but I'm sure she'll figure it out. And then presents would be nice, Grace Ann. This from Grace Ann, not to everybody. And then 18th, we have another full day. And then 19th, I think there's a couple of hours of some community activity. Some of us are going to be meeting the day before and the day after the Quantum Storytelling Conference, just to organize different things. I wouldn't mind doing a veteran session if we can organize that. I wouldn't mind doing some other things with GrowthOD on the ground. I hope we'll see a lot of people in LA. I think there's about 10 people around LA that are going, plus the crowd of people. The conference is selling for about $200 a ticket on the discount rate, which happens until November something or other. The abstracts are being taken in until the end of October, so that's not very long, another 10 days. Again, you can go to GrowthOD.com or .org, quantumstorytelling.org. You can see my paper abstract, so you can do what Bakhtin talks about in Dostoevsky's work, the copyist. He does a lot of writing about the copyist clerk who copies everything, and whether that person has an idea of their own. And it turns out that the copyist clerk does have ideas of her or his own. And so I'm an aspiring copyist clerk. So I'll leave you with that and say goodbye.